Hey everyone, hope you had an amazing holiday. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to convert a video game that was created to be controlled with keyboard input into a game that can be controlled with, drumroll, an Xbox controller. Uh, Pretty cool stuff. I thought this was going to take me a lot longer, but I'm basically using what's called the GamePad API to pick up input from this Xbox controller, and it only took me about an hour to dig through the documentation, get this coded up, and tested. So let's go ahead and test this out. Now, like I said before, this game was created for keyboard input control. You can also use these buttons to control the character. That's actually how it was first implemented. But if I click spacebar, it fires. If I click the right arrow, the character moves right. Same thing with the left arrow. Pretty simple. So now for the cool part, if I pick up this Xbox controller and click left on the analog stick, character moves to the left, and same for the right. So this feels a lot more natural than a keyboard. And if I click the right trigger, it fires a missile. Pretty cool stuff. So let's go ahead and dig into the code. So here's the code. The main entry point is this GamePad connected event, which is going to fire when you connect the Xbox controller to the computer. And when that happens, it's going to create this interval event that fires every 10 milliseconds. So this is the event name, report on GamePad, and here is the function that's going to get executed every 10 seconds. So it's essentially going to get the gamepads and grab the first one. In a production environment, you probably wouldn't want to do this, but I'm only using one controller here, so it's not a big deal for me. And then we're going to check that gamepad for certain conditions and essentially convert the input that we're getting from this controller into keyboard input. Pretty cool stuff. So let me go ahead and bring up the GamePad API button mappings so you can see we're actually using the bottom right trigger to fire a missile. That's button 7. And if I go and look at the code, we're explicitly checking for that button. We're checking if the button's array is greater than 7. And if it is, we're checking for the pressed event. If the button is pressed, then what we're doing is we're calling, this is JavaScript interop calling a C# function from JavaScript, the key down from JS event. So essentially what we're doing here, this 32 maps to the spacebar key, and I'm going to show you, let me open up JS game key handler. So we have this static class, JS key handler, that has these two invocable events that can be invoked from JavaScript. That's why they're marked with JS invocable attribute. So essentially what we're doing from the script, from this report on gamepad function, is we're calling that C# function from JavaScript and passing it a key value. In this case, 83 corresponds to the S key. That's going to be a Dano snap. Same thing for spacebar, 32 is the spacebar key. That's going to fire a missile. Now, these both work the same way, but the axes is a little bit different. So when you're getting input from an Xbox controller, the analog stick is a little different from a button press. It's either in the center, which should be 0. It's all the way to the left or somewhere in the middle, which should be a value from 0 to -1. And same for the right. If you push it all the way to the right, it should be a value from 0 to 1. So I'm basically converting those values to left arrow key down and right arrow key down events. Now, something that might not be apparent, when we detect a left arrow key down event, we're changing the velocity of the character to -10, let's say, if you push the left arrow key. The way we cancel that is on the key up event. So when a key up event happens, we're going to reset the velocity of the player to 0. So that's why I have this else block here. If the analog stick is pushed to the left enough, then we're going to move the character to the left. If it's pushed to the right enough, we're going to move the character to the right. If neither of these are true, then we're just going to cancel both the right and left movement. So pretty simple stuff. This window.net.invoke method async, this is the way you actually invoke C# methods from JavaScript using the Blazor JavaScript Interop API. So pretty cool. That's pretty much it. That's all I had to do to get this to work. It was very, very easy to set up. There's, I'm sure, tons of use cases you could use this for. I actually had an interview with a company in Pasadena that puts bionic eyes into patients that can't see. And so one of the things the doctors have to do is configure the bionic eyeball. So they have to configure the zoom, the focus, things like that. And something like this might be very beneficial for a use case like that, or maybe even security cameras or something like that. So there's tons of use cases. I can't think of all of them in the world, but I'd love to see you create something. If you end up using this video to create something, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and I'll be sure to check it out. Anyway, that's all I had for you guys, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.